for joining, even at short notice. We really do not want to cancel a class, though it won't hurt us much, but it doesn't feel so right for us to have a class cancelled or overly delayed. So it's good we can move online and still share the recorded session with the whole class. We have agreed also to move our presentations. I say we have agreed to a large extent. If it changes later on, it's still fine. We can always communicate that. But for now, the thinking is to move the presentations to next week so that people can have their flair and mannerisms and what have you all captured in person. So we'll do that, God willing, next week. And so for today, we are finishing up the second half of theories on migration and the discussions around that to finish up the whole semester in terms of content. Then next week, God willing, we can do another mopping up from beginning of the semester till end of semester. And then the rest of the day next week, we can do our presentation. That will be week 11 next week. And then the final week 12, we'll come and shake ourselves in preparation towards the exam queries, etc., and have our final ideas. Okay, so that will be the plan. And so that works fine for us for the time being. We'll work with it. Adam will do as the honors and read for us. Currently, I'm projecting slides that you are familiar with. You have in your resource tool. We went through all of them, but I want us to take a little bit more time to look closely at some of the content we did last week, and then Adam will read from then to the end. So we are looking at theories of migration, and we saw on slide number 1. Please, I'm projecting now, respectfully. So the introduction slide tells you that migration is not a new thing. People have moved for various reasons, sometimes for protection, sometimes for safe living, for food. That is even in the primitive times. Now, currently, people move, and the inspiration to move is further inspired by the industrialization and urbanization. We saw that last week. Okay. We also said, I've moved slide now, so please keep looking on your screen. We also said, so migration together with birth and death are factors that contribute to demographic change, demography, where people are, the gathering, how dense the place is, how many people are dying, how many people are being brought into the world. Birth influence the numbers and the spread, but so does migration. So you see how integral it is. Whether it is enough to have 3 highways, or you should run a train system, or you should have a tube system. That is what the foreign folks would say, Europeans would say the tube or lines, referring to trains, the transport system. Some have the train, the tram, taxi, Uber. For movement, will be very heavily dependent on how dense the demographics of that. There are certain places when you run certain businesses, it won't go. So the economy is affected because of the numerical spread. There are certain things you can't do at certain places, but there are certain things you can do at other places. So death, but if there is war at a place, in Ghana, abscess of Ghana, people would not even want to be posted there for national service and stuff like that for some reason. And so how people are moving, migrating, and what inspires that is a crucial matter for the economists, for the political scientists, for the sociologists, for the psychologists, even for health and medicine, environmental stuff. Okay. But we philosophers are interested in the foundations, the discussions around that, the groundings that influence those decisions, those theorizing. Okay, that is what our focus will be. So some of the points of discussion, we saw all these last week. I just want to make sure we have covered grounds, and then Adam will continue with a reading for us to see the conventional view and what have you. Okay, so we saw some of the views, the questions that are philosophically interesting, normative questions. See, not just the descriptive. I emphasize that a lot, so that when you write, it will show that you're doing the philosophy of it, not joining the queue of the economists or, if you like, the social scientists or the political scientist and whatever. The political scientist is interested in who is coming in to vote, for example, at what border. If they think that this person's migration is not a legitimate one. So they describe or they do an empirical study, the data, the raw material, what is the case, okay, to influence their decision making. The philosopher goes beyond just what is the case. We need what is the case, yes, but we reflect on what is the case to determine what ought to be the case. The case, what should. We query the standards, the dogma, the fundamental assumptions that are held, because someone has to watch the watchman. And so that is the task of the philosopher. So when you write, the philosophical writing on these matters should be distinct. You should distinguish yourself as you write. Don't toe the line of these other disciplines, perhaps, if it is not just doing empirical and going beyond that, then that's fine. But sometimes, because of the heartbeat of that discipline, the discipline's concern is the data. What does the data say? What are the patterns that you can detect in the voting of so and so region and so and so region? So that if a lot of people are moving to that region, is it going to influence who gets in power, for example? These are empirical, okay, which is fine for that discipline, but not enough for the philosopher and what our concern is. I need you to get that very well. And so when you write, let's see that. Since you are combining with other disciplines, you may find such discourses in those disciplines. And perhaps, I say perhaps, and I speak advice, what is demanded of you for those disciplines may not be enough if you were to answer philosophically to them. You have to reflect, contribute to the discourse, check the assumptions that are taken for granted, perhaps in other disciplines. That is what we query. So look at some of the questions on your screen. What is the legitimacy of state power? If we say the state has a power, sorry, apologies. Where is that legitimacy coming from? Because the state could restrict who comes in and who goes out. And we saw some examples in class. During COVID, for example, your own resource, you are paying for it, your own bag, you have your own items, and it can't come in. You can't go out. Even out of your room was restricted. Where does this legitimacy, if any at all, come from? That is one point of discussion that is philosophically interesting, because it's a question of normativity. We are prescribing what ought to be the case. Should the state have any legitimacy to restrict who enters which region, country, state, and who doesn't? If you look at some of the world systems, like America, that runs a federal system of a kind. When COVID came, some states in America, it's a United States of America. So some of the states permitted, no mask kind of living, or less restriction on masks and whatever. Others said no masks, no movement. The lockdown was strict in the same America, but certain states within that American United States, okay, had restrictions. Others didn't to a certain degree. Now, what is the legitimacy of that state's power, if there is any at all? What justifies it? That's one point of discussion that is here on our screen. The other one, what are the boundaries that determine political membership? I've showed you vote in Ghana, Togo to the east, or I think Cote d'Ivoire to the right. And the people in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire do not, to a large extent, think that they are different people. They think they are one. So they move in and out really across these two boundaries that were created by, the demarcation by political colonial regime. My point is, remember social and political philosophy. What is the boundary that determines political membership? Because it has implications on when we say all those who are Ghanaians should not be allowed to. If you are not a Ghanaian, you can't come in. And if you're a Ghanaian, is it not because you were born there, or because your mother comes from there, but your father comes from somewhere? What is it? Some people are pregnant and they want to go and give birth outside of a certain place because they want their child to belong politically to that place. We know what happened with our Ghanaian Asen, I think it's Asen, whatever, the MP who had supposedly double, and the implications. He couldn't even lead, no matter the ideas he has, because political membership of a kind. It's a philosophical issue. What are the boundaries of political membership? And this question is not empirical in nature. We are not saying we don't know Ghana, the boundaries of Ghana. We can draw the Ghana map and draw the boundaries of America, whatever. But we are asking what ought to be. That's why I showed this a normative question. What should we consider to be the right political membership determinant? What? Is it the language you speak? Then I'm speaking a lot of good English now. I should be inherited with King Charles. Perhaps not. Very good. So if you get the drift, these points of discussions are there. The last one is it morally permissible? Morally, not legally, not international law. See that? But morally permissible. We are doing philosophy. So here too, we are wandering into what the ethical frame. What is morally permissible? So is it morally permissible for liberal democratic states to prevent their citizens? This is what prevention from exiting. So we put a restriction on your exit. That one is often not common until there is a political matter and what have you. And they think that if the person leaves the state, investigating the matter of this one, so we put a house arrest kind of on you. You are not exiting. And I don't want to reference anybody, but in recent times, someone who is under investigation, a lady, Ghanaian lady celebrity, quote and unquote, under house arrest in someone else's country. Because we won't put you into prison yet because we are still investigating, but we'll not let you leave our country. We will not leave our shores because the laws that will hold you accountable can't stretch beyond that sovereign state. So stay here. So your movement is what? Restricted. The question is it morally permissible for any country what it's sought? Remember the country we reference here, liberal democratic state. If the state is autocratic or defines itself a certain way, anti-democratic, then that's a different question because they'll tell you we are not democratic. We don't allow you to do what you want, for example, okay, quote unquote. But if the state calls itself a liberal democracy, and then it still thinks that there is a moral legitimacy for restricting the movement of people from that country and excluding prospective migrants from entering. This is the question we are interrogating, that what will be the grounding for that? What will be the justification of it for that? That's a philosophically interesting discussion that we can add to the first three or two or so that I've highlighted. The last one that we highlighted is if liberal democratic states are justified at all, justification in excluding some. See what the point is. The earlier one is talking about if the state says we don't let you leave and you can't come in. You may think it's strange. With this social and political philosophy together, look at the world now and check the news. You would see that point 3, where some members are prevented from leaving and others are also prevented from coming in. Exists on this earth. There's nations like that. You exit at the peril of your life. Stay in here. This is your father's house. Like your father has locked the door on you. None of my children are going anywhere after school. You enter. Don't go anywhere. Yes, there are states like that. If you exit, it is at your own peril, and vice versa. So that is for that one. But the last one is where some people can come in and some people can go out. That one sounds discriminatory. So it says if liberal democratic states are justified in excluding some and accepting others, how should they decide whom to admit? What would be the basis if they are all human beings and they all apply to come in? Should we even apply at all? Some don't think so. Now, if they apply, why accept some and leave others? On what basis? What would be the grounds for accepting and rejecting? Since we are dealing with human beings, and human beings, according to Kant and all the others you've studied, moral philosophy and what have you, human beings cannot be used as a means to an end. They are an end in themselves. Should be treated with what? Dignity. Should be allowed the freedom to express themselves. For if you should take freedom from a person ceases to be properly human, says Robert Paul. and others like that, the autonomy. And so you see that all the studies you had in the course called philosophy from level 100 all the way up here are coming to play here. Those are the philosophically interesting questions we saw last week. We had a good time in class. Some migration facts, you saw them, so I want to move. Africa, some migration facts. This is the reading. One of you will be doing that. The one set, excuse me, one group of people will present on that. We saw this also, work as a motivating factor. One of the things that motivates people to move from one place to the other. I don't need to elaborate on that. The desire to live is seen to be strongest in the young and educated. Well, it depends on where we are living. So this one references Africa. I think that for certain places, it is the elderly folks that would want to be living to get back home. They want to go back home. So maybe if you were referencing the movement of people who have gone to spend all their lives outside the country, I'm talking about outside Africa, which is seen to be less developed in reference to the others, okay? So grandma has stayed in America or UK, Netherlands for maybe 30 years, working hard, has gathered resources. At a certain stage of her life, she may want to come back home. And the motivating factors are there. Home being in Africa, somewhere in Ghana or Nigeria or whatever. Okay, coming back home because she wants to come and join with the communal others, even the academics who travel and spend a lot of time at a certain stage of their life, remember that they have to come back home. We can testify of that for our philosophers who they learn all the nice philosophies. When reality checks come in, and when all is done, you realize that you must come back home. So for that, it might not necessarily be the young and educated, but I think the reference point for this is Africa. So migrants in Africa, see some migration facts about where Africa. And so for that, work is a motivating factor. Migration from Europe or outside of Africa to Africa may not necessarily be for work, maybe for entertainment, maybe for people coming home to see their ancestral, supposedly, especially the blacks in the diaspora, they would want to come back and check their roots. They are coming back home. Ghana sees that a lot because of the slave force that we had here. Okay, so if you make this a general issue, it might not work for everyone. So everyone, some nations don't even have their citizens don't even apply for passport. Passport to go where is a question. I said all that in class. They don't have anywhere to go to. But come to Africa towards other places, my own Africa, your own Africa, generally speaking, we would have passports even when we don't know where we are going to. Because we did development, the team on development, we discussed extensively there, so you can connect to that. It is not to write off anything, but I think that there is a fundamental concern. And so that is what the focus is here. Work is a top motivating factor to improve livelihood. Look on your screen to see better business prospect, a better deal, what have you. School is there, so the young and educated want a better way out there. And then most Africans prefer to stay close to home. So even in their migration, they would want maybe Europe or what have you, other than a far away place. But Africans are Africans. The factor that may want to draw you closer to home, I think we said it in class, potentially perhaps because of the communal setting, okay? Where you go far away, I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am. So you still feel connected to home, and you may want to be inspired by a migration that can easily bring you back home if you have to. Traveling 16 hours to America, I don't know if it's still 16 hours now. I think that people are speeding up. Can you imagine sit in the plane for hours, on hours? Okay, but people go. America, from Ghana to America is that long. People go. Okay. All right. Hey, Auntie Adjo, I'm online. I can hear you. All right. So all these ones we've done, that's why I'm talking plenty. Okay, so that I can have them for your revision as well. But I go on now. International migration from sub-Saharan Africa, obviously also sub-Saharan. That should tell you something. Below the Saharan desert, it means upwards. Some even think of them themselves as not part of those of that. Then we saw the push and pull factors, and I think we did a good job on that also in class. Push factors, talking about things back home that push you out. It's a push factor. It pushes you out. Then pull is something outside that attracts you. So home may be okay, but it attracts you out there. We saw good instances of them. On your screen now, let me just say that for those who may have forgotten. So last paragraph, push factors are conditions that can force people to leave their homes and are related to the country from which a person might be. It's from home. If we fear, it's a home problem that will make you run out. So it pushes you out, okay? That a pull factor then will be from outside. Something you see outside of where you go home that is attractive to you, that will make you leave. So when you're writing your essays, then you know how to put them together. So some push and pull factors on your screen now, and then we are ready to move to the conventional. If home is poor, you are having water issues, there is war at home, for example, healthcare system is no good. The person is sick, but then you're looking for outside to go, you know. And migration need not be permanent. Remember, we said that some will just go and work and come back home. Some will just go for health issues. Some will just go for greener pastures and so on and so forth. Natural disaster can make the place that you call home a non-home. And then artificial disaster. I gave you some instances in class that you can relate to. People were asked to have to leave because there are issues, that there's war going on. Leave. You want to be alive, then please leave for your own sake. Now, think about that. You will migrate. It's a push factor. It's something at home that makes you leave. Okay. Then we can have the pull factors. And that is the one on the last paragraph here. We read those also in class, discussed extensively. So maybe we just want to touch on them. Religious freedom. Maybe you see how people live outside there, and it's fine. It looks like the people are allowed to express themselves better. And at home, maybe there's a restriction religiously on what you wear, especially, for example, if we're females, some religious groupings may have some kind of restrictions that will not permit you to even enter into politics, maybe drive a car or run a certain kind of business. It might go contrary to what the faith prescribes in home, at home. And so you look at how same people can practice, can live freely, so to speak, quote and unquote, out there, and it will attract you to live. Okay, superior education, I said all those, welfare systems, certain settings. And I say you can think of migration internationally, and you can also think it intranational, within the nation. So the Kaya syndrome, I mean, Kaya will be meaningful to Ghanaians. These are porters, those who carry stuff on their head. Yeah. They move all the way from up north and come, that's the assumption, to Accra, which is the central, capital, whatever, to work. Now, they think that there is a better everything. Okay, so that is what I tell. So you don't need to always look at internations. Of course, our discussion is more international, but it can also be intranational. What is causing the migration, the movement of people, sometimes in large numbers from one place to the other? And that is what we are doing. So welfare systems, better transportation, healthcare, stress-free environment, attractive security. And people travel away to just for the aesthetic value. You go to Dubai and see stuff. Spend so much for a vacation there. So you see that for a certain period, like this Christmas, you see people coming back home because you want to come and have a relaxation after all the stressful work. You see, from January to maybe November and then December, you have a vacation pace, and you come home and spend it, go back and work for the whole year. Whatever. That is the point. Okay, thank you very much. Then we started, we closed the open borders. I think we did some good job on that also. But to help our understanding, let Adam read from there. Adam, I hope you are not asleep. Not at all. So go ahead. After Adam, Bismarck, Amu will continue for us. Please read the slide I projected now. Thank you.
Closed or open border. International migration involves both exit versus emigration and entry migration. Public debate is public public debate in liberal democratic countries has focused mostly on immigration, with the issue of often framed in binary terms. They are either for or against it. On one side are those who regard borders as unjust and inefficient. Most migrants want little more than to make better lives for themselves. One moral or political theory could justify preventing people from moving where they want to go.
Good.
Global, global egalitarians and libertarians join with migrant rights advocates arguing for general open borders.
Very good. Thank you very much, sir. We read all this. If you were using a headphone or an earpiece, when you are reading again, then you take it off so we can hear you clearly. Okay. But just to say that we said all this in class. So we think that a group of people, if you are reading your reference text very well, and I think you've done that, you are very prepared for the presentation, you see some have a problem with the closing of borders. They think that it is unjust and it is inefficient to close the borders. You should be able to see, as a philosopher, what their arguments are. Articulate them clearly as if you were the one holding that view. You have to give the view the strongest representation yourself. And then if you think that view, after you have presented it that strongly, still has issues, then you're able to critique that. And that is how you write philosophically. You don't run down the view and make it look useless. You present it wrongly, and then when you finish, come and critique a wrongly presented view. Okay, so think through what will make someone say that closing borders is unjust and inefficient. And that is coming from global egalitarians and libertarians and immigrant rights advocates, some of whose references you have. They argue for generally what open borders. We saw a contrast, a disagreement, an opposition of a kind from those that are cultural nationalists who think, look on my screen, please, respectful, who think of immigration, bringing them in. They think of immigration as posing a challenge to the national identity they value. So the nation has an identity that they believe if you open the doors to non-nationals, they come and corrupt the cultural, the religious, the social, the ethnic, the racial identity. The people coming in who don't belong there, according to such cultural nationalists and social nationalists, and if you like, economic nationalists, all these are uncool. They feel that
Doc, please, I can't hear you at all. I don't know whether it's from my end too.
Can anyone hear me, please?
I can't hear you clearly from my end.
It's fine. I heard you. I want to know if others too can. So you would have to keep quiet now. Let's hear the others. You can hear. Say. Okay. So
okay, I think it's better now.
Don't worry. It's sometimes it happens. Are you using an earphone? It's fine. So just check your volume over there. I also increase mine a bit more so that you can hear well.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's also being recorded. No problem at all. We are recording. So just in case there was a challenge, we'll share the recording and then you may play it back to fill in the
Thank you very much.
Increase mine, but you are most welcome, sir.
All right.
Now, so I was saying that just to mop up a few words back, I was saying that so cultural, economic, social nationalists. The word nationalist means someone who is pushing for what the nation has. Think of it that way. So the nation's identity. They feel that this is what we are. And so opening our borders to bring in immigration means someone is coming in. Emigration means going out. The fear is coming from the immigration. So someone doesn't belong here and is coming in, and the cultural nationalists, ethnic nationalists, you can call them racial nationalists, economic nationalists, argue that the infiltration will be a corruption. You should be able to immediately do a philosophical reflection and analysis and critiquing and contribute to the discussion. Because the fact that someone doesn't belong there doesn't mean necessarily that what is coming in will necessarily corrupt. What is coming in may improve. may bring improvement. But you can't also deny that what may be coming in would be a corruption. That is why the philosophical lenses must be put on. We must wear our lenses as philosophers and help in contributing to bring some light to the discussion. Either way, okay? Now, someone will say, oh, Doc, but when you raise those who are for open borders, you didn't critique them. I have to tell you, it is already implicit. Look, you say it's unjust and inefficient for me to close my borders. We are going to vote. You want someone who will not bear the effect of that voting to come and make choices for me when the person is not a national. So we should open our borders. Anyone can come in. Terrorists are passing. Open borders. Let people come and go. Freedom of movement. Really? That's my critique already. You see? So if it is unjust, on what basis is it unjust to close my borders? Why didn't you leave your door open at home when you were leaving for the lecture hall? That after all, we were all created by God. So if I have food in my rice cooker or my phone or my gadgets or whatever, every human being on earth who wants to listen to you should feel free to enter. Why have you closed your door? If you've closed it, then there must be some reason. But you'll be amazed that even though your door is closed, your friend, who is someone you work with, you share some kind of life with, has your key or knows where you put the key, under the doormat somewhere or on the ceiling somewhere. When he comes and everybody can't access that room, he can or she can. Your Chachiko, your Lady Slay or Johnny Bravo comes in and goes, he will feel free or she will feel free, have access to whatever money is in which purse. Because you think the person has a certain entitlement, but not everybody. So that is why you haven't opened the door to everyone, and yet those who must come in and go. That's the critique. The same with this. You are closing your borders because you don't want infiltration, corruption. What if the access coming, the entry coming, is rather to bring you investors that will help you move from subsistence farming to industrialization? That will help you hatch hundreds and hundreds of eggs in some few days and feed your people. Help you fertilize, for example, or have technology that will help you harvest tomatoes that takes days and days and months to harvest in hours, process them and keep them, stuff like that. So both angles, those arguing for open borders and those arguing against open borders, have strengths and weaknesses that you and I would have to interrogate. Should ECOWAS, therefore, have free market? The thing might be on paper, but is it efficiently being discharged? I don't do political science. I don't do economics. I'm doing a philosophy of it. I wanted to ask questions. If we had a market targeting, look at the number of people in Africa. You can check the latest update numerically. If we have this as our market, target market, that you are producing yams, cotton, what are the things we do? Whatever, timber to serve. Look, do you have to struggle? Would we have food going bad? Should there be food shortage? So maybe if we had free movement, Agbamami in Tema will do her banku and okro, whatever, and she can serve this to the whole of Africa in a day, because there is a moving train or a moving tram internation or flights. There are flights that serve the banku from Ghana in South Africa. Think about it, or Gabon or whatever. So there are Ghanaians there and they eat agbamami. The flight takes off in 6 hours time. It is in Europe. Okra stew prepared here right now with the fresh fish, everything inside. Pepper, Ghana pepper. It just sits in the plane and serves those people. Will she be concerned about how much she can expand? The same with Auntie Muniwachi. There are people I know, so I'm mentioning them. I don't know them like they are my friends, but I know that they are thriving very well. I'm talking very basic economics, not the complex things that maybe we can't grab because we are not tutored in that. Think about it. Then she would have to employ more people to do more of the watching because there is a bigger market that moves freely. You're not going to check this. Where is your visa? This, did you do this? Stay at this place and this and apply for this. Charlie, then she will stop and serve her 300 people a day and manage. That's the point. Look at Nigeria alone. In class, we discussed that. Okay, it's a big market. If I produce a music and I'm talking about boundaries, a political membership. If it were restricted to all, we had a free flow of movement of people and ideas. Remember what migration is and innovations and what have you, from down Africa all the way up to Africa and the northern part of Africa and down eastern, western part of Africa alone, my people. Your song, your demo, the song that you did, if it is hitting freely moving. The problem is the restrictions, says the open borders folks. They're arguing for that. We will have an efficient, economically active, so perhaps the one that is protecting, I'm talking about the economic nationalist now, who is protecting the economy of Ghana, for example, the small me, Ghana, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, we are protecting economies. Perhaps we will have a more thriving economy if we here referring to say Africa or the world market. But because of our discussions on democracy, it might look like if you make it the world, there will be what's the expression? Imperialism again, cheating, master play, because you have the soil, you have the seed, you have the forest, the greenery. Some don't. So they'll come to the table with a certain posture. But if you all have some degree of homogeneity, a degree of it, not homogeneous, but a degree of it, then you feed on a certain kind of meal, and generally, maybe it's okro here, a version of the okro in Gabon, a version of that okro, but it's almost close to each other. Then you can serve your people. And so your markets within Africa would perhaps rather thrive if you allowed for free flow. But there comes the opposing view, and then I'm ready for the conventional view now. You open it like that, my people, they will bring all the corn that they produce in their big nation here, and our small economy, Ghana, will be overhauled. Recently, the discussion is to halt Yemwadi. You know the Yemwadi? Yeah. We are going to halt Yemwadi because we are importing so much. People want the outside polished rice. This, even our own cotton, that is so efficient, shea butter, that if you mix it, just make it have a good flavor, that's all, and put it in your hair in this our weather. That is what we need. It's just a flavoring so that it doesn't have an offensive smell, but you can flavor it nicely. It will take care of our skin well. People don't like that. They will like the same thing sent out and brought back home. So it might kill the economy, says the economic nationalist. I would want to ask you a question on that. Teasing out what you would have done if you were placed as a place of authority somewhere, UN, Ghana, what have you, and you have to make a policy inspired by such philosophical thinking. What will you drive? And what will be your reason? Open borders or closed borders? Universally or temporarily? Or dependent on? And why? What would you propose? And what would be your reasoning behind that? Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you, class. So I'll take Amobi's mark now. Please go ahead, say. Read the current slide.
Conventional view. Many theorists writing about justice, equality, freedom, and democracy mostly take for granted that their theories apply within the context of the nation state to those who are already members. Many people take for granted that states have the right to control migration. After all, states do exercise power over borders, regardless of whether there is any compelling justification for it.
Very good. In other words, the whole slide is saying that the question about whether states have a legitimate reason, they have any reason to, the reason must be a legitimate one to restrict movement. People think that, but that one is not in contention. States must have that moral obligation, moral duty. It is a legitimate rights that states have, to restrict borders. People don't think there is any reason to question that, to control movement. So when you go and they say you don't have a proper exit, which is what? You don't have a visa to leave or visa to come in. You don't say, who told you that now? Who told you I need a visa before? You don't do that. Because you take it for granted that states have that authority to tell you that. So go ahead. Please go ahead, sir.
Michael Walzer, 1983, was one of the first contemporary political theorists to explicitly examine the issue of political membership in debates about distributive justice. Political membership is conceivably the most important social good because it has historically determined access to other fundamental goods. Walzer, 1983. It can only be distributed by taking people in. For Walzer, it is obvious who should decide how to distribute the good of membership. We who are already members do the choosing.
I hope you get the point. Thank you. I hope you get the point here. So it looks like, from what we have read so far, it looks like for Walzer, that shouldn't be in contention. Who determines who comes in or go out? It should be we, the people who are already in. That's how we should see. So if it is the nation Ghana that we are discussing, it is Ghanaians that must determine who comes in and who goes out. It's not UN. It's not ECOWAS. It is the people who are already members of the reference group. They should determine whether we want more members or not. So it's PHIL417 class that should determine whether we want more people or the number we have is enough. That is if we were a state. Currently, we don't have a choice about it. For some people, it would have been only 10. The fewer, the merrier. Okay, but we don't choose that. In the past, some instructors could have said, I don't want a class size beyond so and so and so. I think that it's not a right we have. It might be a request you make or something. I may want to check the statute later. But the point is, when it comes to states, nation state, Ghana, Nigeria, Gabon, South Africa, what have you, Michael Walzer's thinking is a conventional one. He's thinking along the lines of the conventional. He thinks that it is oftentimes those who are already members that determine who comes in and who goes. So he said, for us, it is obvious who should decide how to distribute the good of membership. How should we distribute? Those of us who are already members should distribute that good. Coming in, going out. If you come in and we have some resources, those who are visitors for 3 months, we should give you just XYZ access to do so and so and so. You can't go beyond this. If you are naturalized, you can't do blah, blah. Those decisions must be made by those who are already members. Please, to elaborate, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir, to elaborate.
To elaborate the nature of the political community and whether it has the right to control migration and membership. Walzer compares political communities with three more local, more familiar associations: neighborhoods, clubs, and families.
Take your time. Read that again, please. Hold on, please. Read it patiently. Okay, go ahead. Start from.
To elaborate the nature of the political community and whether it has the right to control migration and membership. Walzer compares political communities with three more local, more familiar associations: neighborhood, clubs, and families.
Good.
The first analogy is with neighborhoods, which he defines as the random association of people living in close proximity. Because neighborhoods have no formal admissions policies, people are able to move into and out of neighborhoods for reasons of their own, subject only to the constraints of the market.
All right. Thank you very much. Hold on for a minute. So let me ask the class, how do you understand what you have has been read? Can I have comments from some of you. Because our hands up already, just unmute if you want to talk. I think we are not a big class. I can manage that. So anyone wants to comment on what Amu Bismarck just read? If you want to comment on what Amu Bismarck just read, please just unmute and do so. Don't worry, I will manage it fine. Anyone? Oh, someone wants to talk, but I think her background or his background. Okay. Amu Bismarck, do you want to explain it yourself? I think you have a fine background.
Hello.
Godfred. Godfred, go ahead.
Okay, so in order for Waza to find grounds for his argument, he used the three analogies to determine whether political communities has the right to control migration and membership. And so the first one he used is neighborhood. And in explaining that, he said neighborhoods do not have any border, so anyone can just come into the neighborhood and then leave whenever they want. Hello?
Very good. That is correct. Yes, that's correct. Okay. So if you want to think of political membership, thank you, Sir Godfred. This is what Waza is saying. Political membership, belonging together in a polity, can be thought of in three different ways. One of them is think of it as a neighborhood. If you think of it as a neighborhood, what happens in a neighborhood? People live in close proximity. It's important. So how would you distinguish that from, apologies, my other phone that is doing like that. I want to switch it off. Yeah, if it is not a neighborhood, if you don't want to think of it as a neighborhood, you can also think of it as a club. And I was going to ask that, how would you distinguish being in a neighborhood from being in a club or being in a family? I want a response for that also. Anybody? Will anybody help us? Oh, please don't let us keep the thing. It's a recording, so I don't want it to be too lengthy. Okay. Godfrey, do you want to help us with that also? Or someone else? Okay, Tete Michael. Go ahead, Tete. Go ahead, sir.
Please, I think with a club, they have restricted membership and also they have a common goal. Unlike the neighborhood, which is a random association of a group of people.
Very good. Well done. You have read. Thank you very much. So we can move on now. Say, Bismarck, please do us the honors. Let's finish that one. And then I think there's a third person on my mind. Rahel Owusu. Rachel, I think Rachel Owusu will read for us. Go ahead, Bismarck.
Should countries be like neighborhoods, permitting people to move to whichever one they want? Waza argues they should not.
They should not. So the comparison that he made, or the analogies he brought up, he's bringing them up only to show which ones will be problematic and which ones he thinks are acceptable. Rachel, please go ahead with the next slide. Rachel Owusu. Rachel, are you there? If Rachel is not able to, Laurentia, please read for us. Laurentia Ama.
Sorry. Political communities have an obligation to provide for the security, welfare, and culture of their members. In a world of open borders, neighborhoods might maintain some cohesive culture for a generation or two on a voluntary basis, but over time, the cohesion would disappear.
Very good. The concern is if you treat political membership the way we treat neighborhoods, after a while, that cohesive culture, cohesive from the word cohesion, a sense of, like, I've done a paper on that. I think it's not a paper, a book chapter in this, and I will share it with those who may be interested later. The cohesion, you need that social cohesion, belonging to a sense of like a glue that ties us together. We need that. We need that to run a political community. A political community cannot be treated like an arbitrary one. You know, I just pass like a trotro station, then you meet people, everybody sits inside and goes. No, that's neighborhood. Neighborhood, you can exit that place for any reason. You can be there 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, maybe even went to spend a holiday there, you go. That will not suffice for the kind of cohesion we need to build a political community, says Michael Walls. I will ask you, my dear friends, and you will write and write well too. I believe. Okay. So for a generation or two on a voluntary basis, no. After a while, that cohesion, which is necessary to political community membership, will dissipate. It will disappear, and then it will become to a sense of detachment will come in. Okay. Sister, please read the next one. I'll project it.
Walzer suggests that states' rights to control immigration rest in part on the goal of preserving distinctive cultures. The distinctiveness of cultures and groups depends upon closure, and without it cannot be conceived as a stable feature of human life. If this distinctiveness is a value, as most people seem to believe, then closure must be permitted somewhere. At some level of political organization, something like the sovereign state must take shape and claim authority to make its own admissions policy, to control and sometimes restrain the flow of immigrants.
Excellent. Can someone explain that? Thank you, my lady. Hold on, we'll do one more. But can someone explain this one, please? It's a quote, a full quotation from Walzer. Anybody wants to explain that? Please, I'm rewarding those who are explaining, you know. I'm sure you know already, so I don't want to bore you with it. I put it on file. That's why I mentioned your name for you to see that I've noticed that it is. Maybe people are interested in marks that will move them from 27 to 20 now, but 30 or something like that. You may want to speak. Don't worry if you want to. Just go ahead. Oh, nobody understands Laurentia's thing. Laurentia, they say they don't understand. Read it again, please. Respectfully. Did I say
Yes,
Laurentia? It is Rahel that is reading. Rachel.
Walzer suggests that states' rights to control immigration rest in part on the goal of preserving distinctive cultures. The distinctiveness of cultures and groups depends upon closure, and without it cannot be conceived as a stable feature of human life.
Hold on. Let me explain that. Please hold on, because they don't understand, I presume. Okay. So Walzer is arguing. Think of him in a certain sense as arguing for a certain kind of communitarian argumentation. So that you remember from level 200, person versus community, Marxist personism, and so on. Jechi's moderate communitarianism and what have you. Remember Walzer was mentioned, Taylor was mentioned, you know, Michael Sandel, and others like that seem to be giving a certain argument to support the collective identity of a kind, the collectivity. That is the Walzer we are discussing now, Michael Walzer. Okay, he's arguing that the distinctiveness of cultures or groups, not people, not the individual, but groups, is important. So look at the preliminary statement before you started quoting him. The statement up there is capturing what the one preparing the slide thinks of Walzer. But afterwards, he puts Walzer's quotation there to buttress what he or she is saying. What is that? He said, Walzer suggests the state's right to control immigrants rests in part, so partly, on the goal. There's a certain goal that gives the state the right to want to control who is coming in and who is going out, especially who is coming in, immigration. Okay. There is a certain goal, something that you want to achieve as a state, for which reason you have a certain kind of legitimacy to control movement, especially movement in. It is meant to achieve a certain goal. That goal is not just that goal, but it is part of it. That partial goal is what? To preserve distinctive cultures. There is a concern to preserve the distinctness of cultures, groupings. How does the person writing arrive at this summation? There comes the quotation from Walzer, 1983, page 39. What is it saying? That's what Madam just read. Rachel just read it. And she says, quote, the distinctiveness of cultures and groups depends. So if we want to preserve the distinctiveness of cultures, that will happen. It will depend on what? Closure, closing borders. Without that closure, we cannot conceive of a stable, the distinctiveness of cultures, which is a stable feature of human life. So he seems to be saying that the cultural distinctiveness, allowing the distinct cultures to thrive together distinctly. So gas, fancies, let's use that, okay? Evers, ethnic. I don't even call them cultures, but for the sake of this, we can use that to help us cultural groupings, okay? Remember my cultural identity in a multicultural state. I critique that. You have seen that, my people. What defines the distinctiveness of culture? Culture is just the way of life, but you can still have a certain level of delimitation. So we can argue from there, okay? That these differences must be allowed to thrive because it is crucial to the stable and fulfilling human life. That thing is important. And if we will have this thing that is important, which is a cultural belonging, distinctiveness, we would have to close borders so that the distinctiveness of cultures is not what? Marred, it's not destroyed. This is what he's saying, the first part. Please continue. If this, sister.
Okay. If this distinctiveness is a value as most people seem to believe, then closure must be permitted somewhere. At some level of political organization, something like the sovereign state must take shape and claim the authority to make its own admissions policy, to control and sometimes restrain the flow of immigrants.
Very good. I think that is clearer now. So that if someone didn't understand earlier, I helped you there. Okay. He said some people seem to believe that what? Such distinctiveness of cultures is a value. It is something that is worthwhile. It's a virtue that must be preserved and protected and enhanced and allowed to survive. The way people, what's culture? The way of life of people, their language, their history, their antecedents, the food they eat, their ethics, their value. These are valuable to them. If it is a value that people consider, it's not just one of the things we do, but people think, yeah, I come for, yeah, I come for. You know, we are this. Not just the sense of identity, but the whole corpus called culture, the way of life, and the grouping. This is how we bury our dead. This is how we do that thing. If it is important to people and they seem to value it, then that distinctness, that distinctiveness must be preserved in a sense. Not preserved. The word preservation is a bit problematic for me because I critique that, but must be allowed to what? Preservation means even if it is bad, you are forcing it to remain, I think. But you should allow people to choose whether they want to continue in that or not. So let the things distinctness be given. Allow it. Don't impose a view, a way of life, a thinking pattern onto it and expect that it must buy it hook, line, and sinker. If the people don't own it, it's a lie. It will hang on their head and create more problems. Okay. So for that reason, we must have a certain level of what? A certain kind of sovereign state of a kind. That is why I showed you. I said US, United States of America, is a group of what states. And for a time, when COVID was quite intense, some states in America didn't open borders. Others did. Some did the lockdown, others didn't. And they are all within one umbrella. So think of it in terms of Ghana. It would have been some regions prevented movement, others didn't. Others allowed clubs to open, businesses to just keep their protocols. Others said no, it's a total lockdown and things like that. Allow a certain degree of that sovereignty, like we do per state, says was very good. Sister, I think you will do this last one, Rachel, and then let me see the name there. And then Laurentia will continue. Godfred, be there. You will also read for me. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
This
Rachel.
cultural imperative grounds Walzer's case for the state's right to control immigration, but he adds qualification.
The qualification
the right
means,
to restrict.
hold on, my lady, sorry, I want to emphasize. So the qualification means he puts a caveat. There is a but there. The state has a right to control immigration, but it must do so on a certain ground, based on a certain condition or something. So there's a qualification. It's qualifying that is not a blunt, open state, feel free and control who comes in. There's a caveat he puts in. That's what lady, my lady is going to read. Why do I keep forgetting your name? They don't want me to write your mark down. Rachel. It's Lady Rachel. My lady, please read now.
The right to restrict entry does not entail a right to restrict exit. Controlling immigration is necessary to defend the liberty and welfare, the politics and culture of a group of people committed to one another and to their common life. But controlling immigration involves coercing people who no longer wish to be members.
Very good. Hold on. Thank you, my lady. Hold on. Can anyone explain what we just read? Because we said that Walzer qualifies his claim about open borders, about closed borders. He says the state has a right to control. Control means to put a regulation on who comes in because of X, Y, Z, because of what the distinct is. So it looks like Walzer is making a case is a cultural or national, cultural or economic or racial nationalist kind of argumentation for open borders. But he puts a qualification. What is that qualification? I want to see if people are getting it. There we can go. You may just unmute and respond. Any one of you who wants to react. It's not a big concern. Okay. Esel, Adiza, I don't know if you want to comment. Yeah. It's fine, except that the background is not too good. So I've had to mute you. Adiza, Esel, I'm so sorry. The background is not too good, but I've made a note that you wanted to comment. Can someone else also want to comment on what she read? Yes, Godfred, go ahead.
Okay, so for Walzer's qualification, he's trying to say that we can control people who are coming into our country, but for people moving outside the country, we should not restrict them because that would be a form of coercion.
Very good.
Yes.
Why is it that if you control those who are coming in, it is not a coercion? But if you control the one who is going out from your nation or your state, then we say that one is a coercion. Why do you think he argues that way? I just want you to add a little bit more. That's all. You are very correct, Godfrey. You see that when you are going out, sorry, go ahead.
Hello, Doc.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Doc.
Yes, sir.
Please, I think it's because of the human rights, the right to movement, free movement. Because of that right, we cannot coerce people to remain in the country.
Okay, thank you, Michael. But the point is, Michael Tete, but the point is that if someone is also moving out, moving in, sorry, it's also movement. And so freedom of movement there. If I'm also moving in, why is it that when I'm moving in there, you said that I'm permitted, I mean, the nation is permitted to restrict me. But if someone is moving out there, then we say no. You see that? That is what I'm trying to establish from Walz's eyes. We want to see the rationale for Walz's argumentation. Okay, Goga. Yeah. Oh, you put your hand down. Your hand was up. Oh, I've seen you already. After that, I said appear personalized hand as well. Yeah, them Goga. Your hand went up. Oh. Okay.
Well done.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you were asking that controlling the immigration is not infringing. Yeah, I think that it's better we defend, or we should allow people to go out of the country willingly. Other than that, allowing people to come into the country will also go against us as the welfare and then the politics, as Waza was saying. Because when we do that, there will be pressure on our social amenities and others. So I think that's why he agrees for that.
Okay, I've heard you. You are all arguing fine, but I'm trying to get into, we are trying to get into the mind of Oza. If it is freedom of movement he's advocating for, then it should be freedom of movement in or out. But he says, well, when the people want to move out, you have to respect their freedom of movement. That's what my dear friend Michael Tete said earlier. Yeah, they want to go out. Please permit them, let them go. Don't restrict them. Otherwise, if you do that, you are coercing them. Now, what about the same principle working for those who want to come in? They're also moving. But you say that one there, the freedom of movement doesn't work there. And I'm trying to make us see how we can interrogate and speak for Walzer. We are trying to rationalize what he's saying. Yes, sir. Yes.
So I think that that would help ensure a balance between safeguarding the community and respecting individual rights.
Okay. I hear you. Then they shouldn't let the other person who wants to leave also leave for the sake of the community. If he is the only doctor, just a minute, sir. If he's the only doctor in the nation that he says he's going for greener pastures, he says as for immigration, then we should let him go. Is it not for the community's benefit? He's the only pediatrician we have, or heart surgeon that we have in that community. He says as for if he wants to go somewhere else where they will pay him times 1,000 what he gets in Ghana. Walz's argument says, please, you can't restrict the person who wants to leave. Doesn't that also have implications on the communal welfare that he's trying to preserve? Look at the argument he makes over there. That's a critique I'm thinking of raising. The liberty and welfare, the politics and culture of a group of people committed to one another and to their common life. That is what is making him restrict an alien who is coming in. I use alien advisedly. Yeah? Someone else who is coming in doesn't belong there. So if it is immigration, he thinks it is necessary to defend. Defend what? The liberty and welfare, the politics and culture of a group of people who are committed to one another and to their common life. Yate. So when someone is coming in, the state has the right to restrict that entry. Okay. But when one member who is supposedly one of us committed to our common life and our welfare and our politics and our culture, a member of us committed to our common life and our welfare, maybe he's the only person currently that has been groomed to be able to take care of our hearts. And he's hesitating. With all that we have out of our common life, nurtured him to become. For our common life's sake, yeah, he's hesitating there. He said that one, you shouldn't control it. Is it not for the same common life that we should want to have a certain degree of restriction? So if you are the only heart surgeon, we will say you can only leave if you have trained X, Y, Z others to replace, because we use our resources to take care of you, Mr. Doctor. Mr. Fire Service or so. I don't know which people are leaving. Now everybody is leaving because of arguments like this. As if when people come in, that is when they obstruct our welfare as a common, our common welfare, our political welfare. It is only when people are coming in that they create a problem. Sometimes they even are better because the person coming in may even come and enhance that common life. What about the exits? Which looks like it's okay. That's the query I'm raising. I think you can think around that. Maybe if I'm not getting something there. Perhaps because Walzer and others like him are writing in the context of America and Europe and the developed, so to speak, nations. The thought is that anyone coming in is coming to benefit, not to bring benefit, but to come and benefit. And so their concern is if people who are already okay want to go somewhere else, let them go. Maybe they are going for holiday in Azerbaijan or to Cape Coast in Ghana for a holiday. Let them feel free to go. It is also a coming in to enjoy what we have benefited that we have to restrict. Perhaps that may influence that kind of philosophizing. But if you were looking at the principle, then the same argument I'm thinking, this is a level 400 class, reflect on it and see, that restricts the movement of immigrants. If the principle is a genuine one that sincerely seeks the common life and the welfare, what if I am a member of this, community, and the immigrant, the one coming in, is supposed to come and enhance my life, my concubine that I wanted to now come in to become a member of my family, or a house help that is coming, or someone, I don't really know the example to you, that is coming to enhance my life, and I'm part of this common life that we have created. The person coming will add to my welfare. Why should their coming in be restricted? But the exit there, feel free and go. That's the query I was raising. Okay, we're all trying to get into Walzer's mind. If not, then the principle is biased and it already smacks of what? Discrimination. Why entry restrictions but not exit restrictions? You are exiting your people to go and enter whose nation? Or you think, well, we will allow you to go. When you go and others have strict entry rules and they don't let you come in, come back home. We are here. Or something like that, maybe. Well, please read the last paragraph, Auntie. You are reading very fine, then we'll hand over to the next reader. Almost done.
Except in times of national emergency, when everyone has a duty to work for the country's survival, citizens must be free to exit their country if they wish.
That is the point. That was what I was maybe poking at. If you are the only heart surgeon, you cannot leave. Your exit will create crisis for us. So you will see that even for exiting the immigrant thing, there will still be a certain degree of restriction where there comes the condition where such an exit, if allowed, can have implications on what the collective well-being that he is preserving. That then tones down our critique against him. We put a caveat there. It means that even for the exiting, there are certain instances we cannot permit you to exit. Because if you go, it will affect our common welfare, our common life. Look at it, our politics, our culture, and what have you. So we will coerce you to stay in, just like when it comes to immigrant, we will do. We thank you so much, our dear Rachel. I will now move on quickly to take Laurentia Amma. And then afterwards, we'll do Godfrey and hopefully Adam. Go ahead, Laurentia.
Countries are like clubs. Clubs have admission committees and the right to control who can become a member, but they cannot prevent members from leaving.
Rosa. I think class, can I make class prevent you from leaving? I don't know. Anyway, Football Association. Football Association. They can control who becomes a member, but okay, then so it is fine. I have some honorables. I have a lot of honorables. Hey, hold on, I forgot to do the Marco Conza. I saw this my honorable on TV. Ernest. Is Ernest around?
Oh,
Electoral
please, I'm
Commissioner.
around.
Please, I saw you on TV. Am I lying? That is true.
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm correct because it was a flash. I was in the kitchen. I came to put something on the table, but we were just done talking about. I think it was a Diempo. You said something about your worry is unemployment after school or something. And I turned and I said, I know this person. My student said,
Yes.
oh, mommy, you like that. You like that. I said, oh, I know him. Oh. He's an honorable member in my class. Anyway, we were happy to hear from you. But the unemployment in assembly day, only Grace will help us. What was I doing before I stopped doing go and do concert? Lorisha, please continue.
Like members of a club, members lawmakers establish general qualifications, categories for admission and exclusion, and numerical limits. And admissible individuals are taken in with varying degrees of administrative discretion.
Good. Please go on.
Some theories have made use of this club analogy with explicit reference to freedom of association to defend the state's right to control immigration.
Immigration. 2008. Yeah. Very good. So thank you, my lady. So the whole point then is some want to think of countries as clubs. And we are still looking at Walzer now. One of you just summarized it earlier, that not as neighborhoods where you can just exit and go, you come in and you go as you wish. No. Even that neighborhood thing, it depends on which neighborhood. That's certain neighborhood, you just can't come in and go like that. At the security gate, they will ask you who you are going to look for and when you are coming. But I think they mean you coming to stay in that neighborhood. When you are coming, you don't need anybody's permission in that neighborhood to come in. But the same way when you are exiting also, you don't need anybody's permission. So you come in and you go. So far as you're a legitimate member, you can come in and go as you want. But clubs, African clubs, for example, or football club, or what have you, if you want to be a member, Rotary Club, I don't know if Rotary is still there now, okay, then there are rules. Old school association club, there are rules that qualify you. That I went for Africa's event the last time, and your speaker now said you are a member of Association of Philosophy and Classics students, not by default. You may be a student of philosophy and classics, but if you are not dues paying, whatever, then you are not a member. You see that? So if that is correct, I don't know how correct that is, but if that were correct, it meant that there are qualifications, there are things you must do to qualify you to be a part. So there are lawmakers that are establishing those qualifications, not in somebody's pocket to determine that. Okay, those rules are there, and then there are rules for admission and exclusion, and numerical limits, and such admissible individuals we take you in, and then we give you different degrees of administrative. We apply different degrees of administrative discretion to determine who becomes what, etc., etc. So you have a fair idea of what a club is. You are, however, allowed to exit without any restriction. And that was when I was, if you want to exit, you can go. But to come in, you have to be strained. That is a club. Walzer again. Sister, please read this.
Walzer again compares the state to families, for it is a feature of families that their members are morally connected to people they have not chosen, who live outside the household. Unlike members of a club, members of political community often believe they are morally bound to open the doors of their country to a particular group of outsiders, those recognized as national or ethnic relatives. The implications of this kinship principle for immigration policy include giving priority to the relatives of citizens and taking in co-ethnics who are persecuted by other states?
Very good. So the point is, thank you, my lady. Clubs will be a better arrangement in his analogy than neighborhoods. But clubs will be less valuable if you compared it to what? The family, how we think of family. So Walzer is giving you three symbolisms. You can have an arrangement of political membership that thinks of itself, that nation, as a club. And it will not be good enough if you were to compare that with political membership that thought of itself as a family. If you were comparing club with neighborhood, a political association like the one that Robert Paul Wolf implicitly advocated for in his in defense of anarchism, those who do social and political stuff. He says, I'm a citizen of the world. So I would normally have not had any ties with the state I call my nation. Whatever obligations I owe to that nation, if I move to another, I just have to owe same because it is a matter of what? My moral inclinations, how I'm validating the rules there myself. I self-legislate. So it's not the state that prescribes what is right or wrong for me. So I know it is right to act this way, morally speaking, whether I'm in Ghana or Afghanistan or Zaire or Palestine or Israel. See, it is not the state that prescribes for me. So therefore, if you look at how Wolf was arguing there, I'm a member of the state and therefore I don't have any ties, so to speak, to any. I only work with that state if that is where I find myself now. If I move to another state, I still owe the same obligations because it is really laws that I make for myself. It's not the state that prescribes it for me. Think of it that way, so that he looks like a citizen of the world, cosmopolitanism, cosmos. So I'm a member of the whole world. Wherever I find myself, I belong there, kind of. That would sound like neighborhood thing. I come in and go as I would. I can come here and live. Think of political membership then in that way. I'm a member of Ghana for now. The next time I'm a member of America. If I go to China, I'm a member of China. Political membership is what I'm referring to. That is the neighborhood one. That for Walzer will be too, I don't know if flippant is the word, it will be too trocan. I said that one, the cohesion we need to build political community will not be there. Then club would have been better. The club one, at least for you to belong, you have to qualify. There are lawmakers, there are regulations. But if you want to exit, you feel free to go. But club too would have its own challenges if you compared it to the family. So he's doing an analogy. If it's not this and this would have been better. But so when you compare political membership to family, then that one gives you that kinship principle, for which reason you can even open the borders to someone you consider as family. Your father is maybe in America now working, you're in Ghana. He's still your family member. The father is not geographically located where you are, doesn't make him any less family. You see that? My brothers and sisters in the Lord, and your mother is not my father. My mother, and my mother is not your mother. But in a certain sense of family that we use at church, or in a certain sense of family that we think of, if we start thinking political community in that sense of it, then we will be able to pick certain people. So see how European Union considers its members. Why they don't need visas? They travel across borders, I think. But if you are going there, you're not a family member. You and I are from Ghana. You're not a cousin. Far away, you need permission to enter. Use your own door at your hostel to give you some symbolism to help you understand. Your door is locked to those that are not family to you, quote and unquote. Okay. But someone that you consider family of a kind, in other words, a relational tie with, can have the keys. Or you can call you and tell you, I'm coming to pick the hand dryer for my hair. I really need to move now. So the key is so and so place. Has access. But if the shoe shine guy is coming there, do you give him access? No. Is he a human being? Yes. Does it have freedom of movement? Yes, but not movement into your room when you are not there or you are there. This is the point. So when we think of political membership in this regard, that's the third analogy that Walzer points to. Then we will be thinking of national membership as what? Kinship membership, or like the way we think of relatives. And sometimes when you apply for visas out there, you will see that people will say, she's my wife, she's my this, so that the relational tie argument can make it possible for you to enter. That one too, most people have abused it. So much so that one person can have 13 wives. I don't want it. You have 13 wives, stay in your country and marry them. Why have you come to our country? Become and marry 13. And each wife has 26 children. And each of the 26 children, 14 of them are twins. So you alone, because of so-called kinship ties, because of kinship ties, you alone, one person that came to the nation, through this kinship ties, you have brought in more than 113 people and still counting. No. So you have to see how people can abuse that, depending on where they come from and why the nationalists sometimes don't want to work with even that. Very good. Thank you, Laurentia. We enjoyed your reading also. So now I can go to Godfred and then Edem Kuga, and I think we'll be done. Go ahead, Godfred. Please read the current slide, unless there's a question. If not, say go ahead.
Taking stock of these analogies, Walzer underscores something that is unique about political communities. It possesses jurisdiction over a particular territory. Unlike neighborhoods and families, states have the right to control the physical location and movement of members and non-members in the territory.
Very good.
Yet, like clubs, they have the general right to set their admission policy. And like families, they have an obligation to take in those recognized as the national family.
Very good. Keep reading. Those are very self-explanatory, so please go on.
Walzer suggests one more constraint on the right of states to control immigration. They are bound by the principle of mutual aid. Positive assistance must be provided to foreigners outside the territory if it is urgently needed, and the risk or cost of giving it are relatively low.
You can see that there's another caveat here, which helps us deal with the concern we had with Walzer earlier. So if the person is not a legitimate member, like think of the way you can help a beggar. I say beggar in quote, someone passing by that you can tell needs food. You don't owe the person an obligation as you. So you open your door, you get your bread. Of course, you do it advisedly. You think of it twice before you go extending help. It is your own car. You are driving it. But if you look at the time and look at the place that the person looks stranded and is begging for a lift, you may throw, if sometimes I would want to do that rather. If I think that, oh, maybe this sister needs a lift. But you don't know who to trust now. You see, at that time of the maybe you're coming for all night or something, then you pack, they're going to give a lift. Hey, look at the caveat. The risk or cost of giving that help are relatively low. It is urgently needed. Is it urgent? Can the sister walk to the next junction where there are a lot of people there for car, or she wants an easy way out? If there is, you close your eyes and pass. You see that. But where there's urgent need and the risk is less, there's the principle of what mutual aid. You have to help. Kind of. That is Walzer, and I think that is a healthy caveat to add, so that you don't say it's our thing. We built it, so nobody should come in. Even when the people urgently need the help, you say no. Each one for himself, God for us all. That's dangerous. What if fire falls in yours the next time and you have to exit? Who should receive you? So the next paragraph. Thank you.
Wealthy countries can usually fulfill this duty by sending aid to the poorer countries. But in the case of persecuted and stateless people, the duty can be met only by taking them in.
Self-explanatory. Please read this one. Do you read verify as well? Go ahead.
Many scholars reject the conventional view in favor of open borders.
What will be the conventional view for those who may have lost track? See the title, Argument for Open Borders. You see that? it tells us that the conventional view, look at that, many scholars reject the conventional view in favor of open borders. It means the conventional view is what? Closed borders.
Closed.
Very good. My dear friends, it means conventional means what is the standard one that has been accepted, the convention, and it looks like that is what is being used, standard, but there can be alterations here and there. Now others think that no, we should rather open the borders. So Walzer's argument all this while had been to tie in the argument for what? Closing the borders or restricting it, if you like, so to speak. Segway.
They begin from the basic liberal premise of the moral equality of all human beings and interpret liberal principles as requiring a policy of open borders.
Mm.
Joseph Cairns, the leading proponent of open borders, highlights the unfairness implicit in being born a citizen of a wealthy country. Like being born into a wealthy family.
Tell your friend that the rain no go. You know be salt. Tell your friend that I say you know be salt. If the rain comes, no go. you know go melt. If no worry, don't worry, it's fine. Go ahead.
Like being born into a wealthy family, citizenship acquired by being born in the territory of or to parents who are citizens of wealthy liberal democratic states is a matter of luck.
Mm.
It is, to borrow a phrase from Rouse, 1971, so arbitrary from a moral point of view, but so strongly determines our prospects in life.
Very good. Well read. The name is Rawls. Did you do social and political philosophy with class? That is John Rawls. Oh, you didn't? Okay. It was explicit. I could tell that you didn't, but it's fine. So Rawls's argument, when we did the justice as fairness, those who recall, most of you did, he argues to show us that there are certain natural advantages that others have, that others don't have, which have to be bridged. That is why some seeming discrimination has to be done. Remember the track event. Those of you who didn't do social, if there are a few of you didn't, just remember the track event. If you are doing 400 meters, 200 meters, it should just give you a fair idea around the field. You see that the starting point is not the same for all the 6 lanes, and yet it is sorry, please, can you hear me now? I suspect a hiccup of a kind. Adam, please, can you hear me?
Yes.
We went off for a minute. If it is a network thing, then it's fine. If it's data, I may have to switch mother. Okay, I was just explaining that. So those who didn't do social and political philosophy with us, just remember the track event. The one in the outermost lane would have to navigate a longer curve than the one in the innermost lane. And so you see that the innermost lane person is always at the back there compared to the one who is in the outermost lane, maybe lane 6 or so. And yet, according to Rawls, that is fair. So it is a seeming discrimination meant to bridge a certain natural gap. Now, this author that has been referenced there, Joseph Cairns, is saying that look, open the borders. Now, those who are rich, who don't want, if it's the rich that close their borders to the outside world. I told you, like Michael Waza was trying to portray. It is because I have so much, that's why I've logged it, so that you don't come and benefit. He say, you people, what you have, it's just by luck. The wealth and what have you, either inherited it from a stolen, from what your ancestors stole or something like that. He didn't say that. I'm just making fun. Okay, trying to create, saying this in jest. So the wealthy liberal democratic states that thing that you were born to a parent, and so you don't even need a passport or whatever. It's a matter of luck. It is so arbitrary from the moral point of view. It's not something you have by desert. You didn't deserve it. You didn't earn it. Says Joseph Carens. Okay. So please read this too. We can mop up shortly. You're done. Well done, everyone. Go on.
In his early work, Carent, 1987, built his case for open borders by drawing on utilitarianism, libertarianism, and liberal egalitarianism. Each of these theories shares the assumption of the equal moral worth of all human beings. If we take this premise seriously, we have no basis for distinguishing between citizens and aliens who seek to become citizens, whether the moral standard is maximizing utility, respecting the rights
of all. Has it started raining at your there?
No, please.
Something happened. Are you moving to a lecture or something? You are walking now, right?
No, please, I'm in the room.
In a room, there's a background noise that is not helping us at all. It's quite sudden, so I don't know. Or it's not from you, Okay, I see another open microphone. Okay.
It's not from me.
Okay, it's fine. Then please go ahead. Let me mute or then unmute. Because it's a recording, I want you to get a very good recording. Okay, so I've muted, or Godfrey, please unmute now and read for me.
So please, should I start?
Oh dear. So I think, yeah, read for me in his heading way.
Okay. In his early work, Carent, 1989, built his case for open borders by drawing on utilitarianism, libertarianism, and liberal egalitarianism. Each of these theories shares the assumption of the equal moral worth of all human beings. If we take this premise seriously, we have no basis for distinguishing between citizens and aliens who seek to become citizens, whether the moral standard is maximizing utility, respecting the for basic liberties, and some measure of material equality.
Very good. So this is heavily built on what? The principle of equality. That's all. If we treat human beings equally, this is Carens. Remember the name, Joseph Carens. I may reference him so that you can easily point to him and build your argument. He thinks that on the principle of equal treatment of all, is egalitarian. I mentioned that the right to liberty, equal basic liberties, and some measure of material equality. If we are arguing from there, whether citizens or aliens, we should all be treated equally. More recently, go on, sir.
More recently, scholars have developed additional arguments for open borders. They fall into two main categories. The first appeals to the liberal egalitarian ideals of moral equality and equality of opportunity. The basic claim is that respecting the moral equality of all human beings requires a commitment to global equality of opportunity.
Okay.
According to Carent, equality of opportunity requires that access to social positions should be determined by an individual's actual talents and capacities, not limited on the basis of arbitrary native characteristics, that is, class, race, or sex.
Very good. So those are to tell us, it's still an expansion of the argument on equality, but here even emphasizing equal opportunity for all. If the talent and the skill is there, let everyone pursue. Don't use your race or country boundaries and whatever to say you are not a member of our this one, you don't belong here. So no, if the person has look at the prime minister of this one, UK now, it's news. It is big news. The one that was in charge of their finance then was also Ghanaian, I was told. That's big news. You have to understand. It's arguments like this that makes such, of course, it's not a border issue, but it's talking about equal opportunity. Don't say he's not Ghanaian or he's not English. He's not purely this to come and be our prime minister. In the past, it was extremely the case. It couldn't have been an issue. It couldn't have been possible for us to have that. Okay, so just to show you the impact, if he can be a member of the state, then he can lead, then he can even be the lead of the leads, and so on and so forth. Says such argument lies. And so you see the argument for open borders better made here. Citizenship status then is not an appropriate basis upon which to distribute access to rights and opportunities. Still building on equal opportunities for all. And so no discrimination. Immigration restrictions constitute an unjust form of discrimination, which is similar to discrimination on the basis of class, race, and sex. If you say you can't come in because you are not Ghanaian, it's the same as you can't come in because you are a female. Or you can't come in. And we want to say what? Yes, they think by the same token, we should be able to admit all people, of course, on the basis of equal treatment of all. If I'm a terrorist, that's a different matter. But if I'm a human person, I have the skill, I have the talent, the blah, 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 I should have access. And so borders must be opened to me. There's a few others here. I really want to round up, as you say. Mollendorf, I think you can see him there on your screen, argues everyone in the world should have the same opportunity set. So you should have names of authors arguing for open doors. We just saw Joseph Carey. We have seen Mollendorf, 2002. Still emphasizing equal opportunity sets. So read this one, and then your colleague will do the final lap. If we are quoting him now, Mollendorf's quote.
Okay, if equality of opportunity were realized, a child growing up in rural Mozambique would be statistically as likely as the child of a senior executive at a Swiss bank to reach the position of the latest parent.
The latest parent, very good. Just showing that if you gave them equal opportunity, Kofi Annan of Ghana could become United Nations Secretary General. The whole world. Yeah. It's just opportunity. So stop this closed border that restricts on the basis of just race, sex, identity. That is the whole point. Mollendorf emphasizes that. And we see a number of others. A number of other theories view global equality of opportunity as an important element of global justice. We see Kani there and Shishaka. The implication is that global equality of opportunity requires open borders. It is a requirement for equality of opportunity if we open borders. Do you agree? You are the philosopher. All right. Thank you, Godfred. You also did well. And it's already 1:20, I think. So I'll let Goga do as the final lap. And then we are out of here. Goga, please read. Let them Goga. Argument for open borders is better. We have just about two of them. The others are not to be read. Hey, whose background is that? And is that your background? Then let someone who has a clear background speak for us for your own benefit. Eesh. Save me out. Hey. Sorry, let's mute her and get. Okay, Rachel, do you want to read it for me? No, Rachel read earlier. So, okay, Rachel, go ahead. Or is it better? Is your background better now?
Yes, Doc.
Was your hand? Okay, go ahead then. Your hand has been up for a while.
A second set of arguments for open border rests on the value of freedom.
Good.
There are several freedom-based arguments. The first contends freedom of movement is a fundamental human right in itself. People have an interest in immigration that is fundamental to their well-being, and this interest is said to be of sufficient weight to grant a duty on others to respect the right to
immigrate. That's all. So the whole point is people have a fundamental right to freedom, and that freedom allows you to move. And that's why as soon as I hear this, as a philosopher, I'm tempted to say, hey, offer. So freedom to move into someone's bedroom and decide where you will sleep on that bed because you have a freedom to move, that's too open to be useless. Remember. So we have to put context to this. You can't say freedom of movement. So example, when they say start work and invigilators start working, then you get up and you are moving around reading people saying, when they say, my friend, sit down and say Ghana is a free country and there's freedom of movement. Really? So we have to understand when we hear such argumentation, not to rubbish the very fundamental core, right, but to put it into context. What is meant by freedom? And so, if you are critiquing or examining the views, you must have that in mind. Say, a second freedom-based argument for open border proceeds by way of analogy. It says freedom of international movement is a logical extension of the rights we already have. We already take to the fundamental, the right of domestic free movement and the right to exit a country. See that within the country, it looks like that one is okay. I can move from Accra to Tamale. There are no borders. They don't check my anything. Of course, you pay toll. Even the tolls have all been removed in Ghana now. You move freely. Something just by that, by extension, you should also be free to move from Ghana to Nigeria and from Nigeria to wherever, America, freely. It is just a logical extension, the same argument that allows for freedom within the borders must be extended to outside of the borders. And I shudder to think what that would mean because of the implications. That is the argument line. So Karen, for example, concludes that liberals should regard freedom of international movement on your screen now as a basic human right, which grounds a duty on the part of states to open their borders. Okay. So please read this one. This is slide number 34 of 37. We are done. Go ahead.
Another consistency argument is made with regard to exit and entry. The right to exit one country is widely recognized as a human right. The 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights includes the right to leave any country in its list of human rights.
So we have the link there, you can check. What does Cole say?
He argues that the right to exit a country entails the right to enter another.
Do you remember don't worry, sir, don't read again. Do you remember what I was saying when Walzer argues that people can, that is what has come out. There's no consistency. You want them to freely leave and enter whose country? If you have restrictions for immigration, then by the same token, there should be restrictions for exit, because the person that you are allowing to leave is going to someone else's country. What kind of double standards would that be? And that is the point being made here. There must be a symmetry between exit and entry. And it's coming from Cole. Take note of the names, dear friends, okay? One cannot consistently assert that there is a fundamental human right to emigration, but no such right to immigration, unquote. I'm quoting Cole now. I'm so happy to see that. I didn't even get to this when I was doing my own mop-up for your class. So I'm happy there's a reference point, because I have not done a write-up on it for you to reference. Okay, so there's an authority to reference when you are critiquing that. Cole argues that the liberal asymmetry position, that is the one advanced by Walzer, I told you earlier, as discussed, will have blah, 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 blah. A third freedom-based case for open border has been made by libertarians. Let's see what the libertarians say. Go ahead, sir. Everybody, apologies, sir. Let's finish it nicely. Go. We can.
Yeah. So we can find these arguments in the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal. That's our greatest hearsay, is that we believe in people as the great resource of our land. So long as we keep our economy free, more people means more growth. The more merrier. Okay.
The more the merrier. They are lying. Don't we say the fewer the merrier? They have turned it upside down. Okay, so it says our greatest heresy, okay, is that we believe in people as a great resource of our land. That is what we believe. So this one is turning the argument. One of you spoke with me after class the last, unfortunately I don't recall the name, but he was saying, but Doc, don't you think that when the people open the borders, rather, it doesn't necessarily mean cultural infiltration, like negative corruption? No, not necessarily. It could rather mean enhancement, because you'll get new ideas, new things, and say, oh, you are. You see that how you are thinking very fine. It's not every entry, opening of borders, that is a corruption. These people's argument line for open borders is that open the thing, the more, the merrier. When we have more people, we have, it's people, mind. It is human beings that are used to build. So the more we have, the better. That's the argument line. Don't think that when more people come, it means the little resource we have will dissipate. Well, more more human beings means we'll create more of the resources and there will be enough to share and stop. So, something like that. That is the argument line. Okay. And that is coming from, they are just speaking from the Wall Street Journal. And so authors like Gordon, you see the names there badly, are all arguing for open borders. It's amazing. You would never think that there were counter opinions about the conventional, but there are. The empirical assumption here is that complete or even partial elimination of migration barriers would bring vast economic gains, especially for migrants and the firms who employ them. Open the borders and let people come in and go and see if we won't have more hands doing what a few of us were doing earlier, and therefore expand the economy to get us more gains, says those authors we saw. So, for example, we see this. These are all another potential qualification will arise. If too many immigrants came within a short period, which might lead to a breakdown in public order. See, if we open the border without any form of restriction, there are people who mess up their home and come and continue the messing up in your home also, and come and make and continue. So we are told to remain in our S-hole there and mess it up there. Don't come. There should be some kind of restriction. Otherwise, people will not feel accountable for their own security, national security, the state they belong to. They will mess it up because they know they can always exit and go somewhere. So overly open border like that needs a qualification. Okay. So that public order is not okay. This is coming from currency. See that. And we are done. Thank you very much. I will take questions, but let me end it so that I can share it with the class. And then just in case anyone has a question, I'll give you some few minutes of my time. I should be entering into rationalism class now, which has also been moved online. But I can take a few of your questions before. Thank you so much, Adam, too. Any questions?
Yes, Doc.
Go ahead, sir.